Hi, this is Ingrid and welcome to my winter bookland. So for today we're actually going to do something a little bit shocking. We're actually going to have a book review. Wow, I know it's such a big surprise really. But at the same time it's actually not going to be a book review because I'm reviewing an entire series and just giving my opinion on if they're worth reading through or not. So you're going to notice that I look exactly the same as I do in another video that has the exact same subject as this. But that's because I can't be bothered to change and I don't have a lot of free time, so I have to film when I can, and changing lipstick and clothing is really bothersome, so we're just gonna go for it. And the series we're going to talk about today is The Raven Cycle by Maggie Steifvater. So how I'm going to do this video is I'm going to split it into 5 parts, I think? Yeah, 5 parts. 5 parts where I discuss different things about the books. It will be a large non-spoiler section at the start, and then the 5th part of the video will be like a spoilery discussion of things I enjoyed, plus me discussing the theme. Like the first 4 parts are the synopsis, the characters, the plot and the language, and I will put the timestamps up here so you can go check out things that you're most interested in if you'd like. So I'm going to start with the synopsis of the first book, and even then it's kind of hard to do because The Raven Cycle is a bit weird. So honestly I would recommend just starting to read the book if you're interested or you think it sounds interesting, because trying to get a feel of this book out of the synopsis is extremely difficult, but I'll try. So the first book at least starts with these 5 characters that we meet, and they all live in this small town called Henrietta in my brain immediately went to Texas, but no, it's in Virginia. First of all, we have Blue Sargent. She lives in a family full of psychics, and not just like pretenders, but actual psychics. She's the only one that doesn't have psychic powers though. But there's this thing that she's been told by these psychics throughout her entire life, and that is if she kisses her true love, he will die. And then we have Richard Campbell Gansey III, who is searching for a dead Welsh king named Glendower, and you have his 3 friends, Noah, Adam Parrish and Ronan Lynch, who are all helping him in this quest. The thing is, these boys go to this private academy called Aglionby, and there's kind of like some tension there because Blue doesn't like people from this school very much, and basically it's just them developing friendships, relationships, while this entire plot with Glendower and dreaming and stuff like that goes on in the background. And that's really all I can say without spoiling it too much. Know that the plot is kind of like a little bit all over the place, but in a good way. Maggie Steifvater handles it in a very good way. But I think you'll just have to throw yourself into the book and see if you enjoy the way she writes the plot or not. The thing is, the synopsis on the back of the book, you can't trust that, because this synopsis is really bad compared to what you get in the book. So just know that. Okay, and then we start on the first section of my book talk, which is the characters. One thing I want to say about the characters in these books is that they're kind of hard to love. They all have extremely strong rhetorics and opinions, and they are all very powerful characters in themselves. Their characterizations, the way they act, they are strong in their characterization. I don't know how else to describe it. You like get the sense that they all have their own established personalities, and even those rhetorics that they stand strong on are challenged throughout the books. One thing I will applaud Maggie for is the way she manages to just make character development just float through. Like, I didn't notice the character development, but it was there. It just was so natural that I didn't notice it at all. And I think that's really great. And I think that's really impressive, considering how hard it is to make character development seems so natural, especially when there's no way to trigger this reaction of development that you can see like obvious. I think Maggie Steifvater manages to make it make sense and feel good at the same time. What I want to say is that the characters show a nuance of humanity and how we react to things, our opinions, and the way we change as humans. I think it's really, in terms of personality, it's a really diverse cast. It's kind of fun actually to see these characters interact and just play around each other. One thing that I feel really great about is the fact that character points and personalities don't get changed or overworked through the books. The characters just learn to work with them. So you have characters who has this really strong rhetoric and then kind of like mellows out a bit in terms of that rhetoric, but he still holds close to that rhetoric, only that it's changed slightly. He learns to work better with it. And I feel like Maggie manages to do that in a really great way as well. Her strong point is definitely her characters. And then there's maybe no surprise that the books are mainly character driven. If you enjoy just the plot taking overhand, you actually might like this book as well, because the plot is actually really interesting and Maggie manages to intertwine character development and character actions with the plot very well. So this is actually a book for you if you enjoy the plot very much as well. Out of the entire cast, I felt like Ronan and Adam are definitely the most developed and like established characters. I could really like feel for them. And there's the thing, I kind of hate Blue Sergeant a little bit because of the way she acts around others and the way she treats others and stuff like that. But I found that I actually really enjoy reading about her as well. Normally when I hate a character, I nearly skip their chapters because I just can't handle them. But Blue I actually could handle. I could see why she reacted the way that she did. And I feel like Maggie manages to create characters that you can hate or you can dislike, and you may disagree with them, but you still enjoy reading about them and hearing their story and how it develops and stuff like that. And I think that's actually really great. For example, there in the second book, I'm trying not to spoil anything here, but there's a conflict between Blue and Ronan about Ronan's oh my god, it's another word I can't pronounce. Oh my god. There's a conflict between Ronan and Blue about Ronan's religion and how it relates to Blue's entire family being psychic. And there I felt like, because I hated the way Blue reacted, I didn't like how she treated Ronan, but I can still see where she was coming from. And the interaction didn't leave me like completely fuming and wanting to put down the book, but I was still angry with Blue. And I feel like when Maggie manages to make me want to read on, even if this character has just infuriated me, I think it's a really great thing. Now I will go on to talk about the plot of the book. The reason it's hard to do a synopsis of it, it's kind of all over the place, but in a great way. The thing is, the plot goes very fast and you don't notice that it goes very fast. So you get kind of like rushed through the book, but you still get a feel that you know everything that's going on and you feel like you gather the story pretty well as well. A small criticism I have is that the endings are kind of rushed. If you enjoy like big endings with like 100 pages of like the climax and then having a mellowed out ending, you won't get that here. I think the climax in a lot of the books happens in the last 50 or so pages, and then you have 10 or 5 pages at the end with a epilogue. And no, I know that not many people enjoy this kind of things, and the endings are kind of abrupt even to me, but I feel like the rest of the book kind of just pace it back because the plot is so well done. One plus is that it's a very natural progression in the plot itself. Everything makes sense, you know, even like there's no like plot twist that came out of nowhere and doesn't make sense. Maggie manages to just have plot twists without it being just too far-fetched. Like, there's always a sense of surprise, suspense and magic in her books. You don't know where the plot is going to go because it can go so many places, but when it actually happens you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense, because she's so good at doing this kind of thing. And the third part, of course, is language. The language in these books is kind of the selling point of them, I think, because Maggie has this really just poetic, beautiful style of writing. Like, the language is so goddamn beautiful. And in her other books as well, for example, All the Crooked Saints, you can tell that this is just the way she writes, and it makes me want to buy all of her books and just to read them, and it makes me wish she just published like 20 books a year, because they're a dream to read. And as I mentioned, I'm kind of like annotating the Raven Cycle. I've gone through all the books now, of course. What I find is that my purple pen, which I use for quotes and things and sentences I find memorable, it's nearly run out because I've underlined so many things with it. And one thing that is really positive is that teenagers in these books actually talk like teenagers. But it's not like a satirized or overpronounced way of talking. Like, it feels very natural. Like, I could imagine my friends and me talking like this to each other. But one thing is that Maggie uses a very dry sense of humor that was totally ahead of its time. There has been some drama recently because a reader kind of didn't enjoy the way Maggie wrote to her fans, but I just want to know that this is very natural for Maggie to write, I think, because all the books is just filled with sarcasm and just so many funny lines. And like, I think because Blue Little Blue is a favorite amongst most people, this book is the one that everyone calls the best of the series, and I think it's mainly because of the humor that Maggie manages to blend into the plot, because this book was fucking hilarious, alright? But Maggie also manages to blend poetic and dramatic language together very well. Like, you never feel that her poetic explanations of things and her metaphors and stuff like that hold up the plot. It's all very natural to put in there. If there is a scene that it's supposed to go fast, she doesn't put in a long paragraph of metaphors and stuff like that. It's mostly for the slow moments she does that. And I find that really great. And even if she uses metaphors, it's in that kind of like... The thing is, I've grown up with folk tales, and the way Maggie describes things, and especially in Blue Lily Blue in the cave scene, you know what I mean, if you read the books, it's just reminded me so much of like old folk tales from Norway, and just the way it was explored, it had this kind of effect on me. I don't really know how to describe it. My chest kind of tightened because it just made me feel so odd, really. So yeah, I can recommend this book for anyone, really. Like, pick up the first book, see if you like the way Maggie writes and her plot and stuff like that. Fair warning though, The Raven Boys, the first book, is more like focused on the plot and stuff like that and things that happen around them, while the second book, The Dream Thieves, is mainly focused on one of the characters, Ronan. So I feel like you need to know that, because a lot of people went into the second book and came out disappointed because they didn't expect it to be so focused on just Ronan. So I just need you to know that. But I will definitely recommend this book and this series as a whole. You know, I don't think there's a soul in book that hasn't read this series, but please, just if you haven't read them, do it, because they are just so lovely and such an inspiration to read, really. Just know that I am one of those readers that is totally on Maggie Steifvater's side in all of these dramas that goes on in the fandom. Fair warning to anyone going into the fandom itself. This fandom is very entitled and bratty, just so you know. You will hear a lot of negative stuff about Maggie Steifvater in the fandom, but you'll need to assess your own opinion on them and hear from multiple points of view, because the Raven Cycle fandom is one of the most entitled fandoms in the entire world, I feel like. I think Maggie gets a lot of unneeded shit for her books. So yeah, just be aware of that. And then we can go into the spoilery discussion. I will give you 5 seconds to leave if you haven't read the book, but please do, and then you can come back and we can have a discussion. Okay, originally I had like entire section for itself for themes, but I couldn't because this book is a teacher's worst nightmare because it has no fucking theme. Like, it's so all over the place. Like, there's drugs and there's cars and that's most of the dream themes though, but like magical animals and magical speaking forests, and it's like, I've tried to explain this book to my friends and they're like, what the fuck is this book even about? Because you can't explain it, really. But I mentioned in my unpopular opinions video that I didn't like Blue Sergeant. And then someone commented on that it's kind of the point that Blue is a hypocrite. And I can totally agree with that. I think, well, it's Maggie's way of showing, like, even those you idealize, even those who are like really fighting for good and stuff like that, you know, Blue is a very good person that fights for what she thinks is right. Even those can be hypocrites in their own right because they don't really know others. In the Blue, there was this moment, you know, where Henry's car had stopped and Gansey kind of helped him, and Blue just got so judgmental over everything because she thought that this Gansey was a fake Gansey. And then later in the scene with Mallory, when he explains like, this is Gansey, this is how Gansey is, and she was just like, oh, I've completely read every situation wrong and I didn't know Gansey as well as I thought I did. And I think it's very great that Maggie just makes these challenges for all these characters and makes them go through this kind of thing. And this book really makes me think, you know, especially in the terms of the situation with Adam. I feel like, you know, I wouldn't say my family is like wealthy, but I come from a well-off family, and just the Raven Cycle has actually made me like think more about the privilege I have in terms of money and just the privilege I have with my family and stuff like that. And I feel like Maggie manages to woe in this kind of lessons without making it too obvious or lecture-like. With Adam's situation, you feel for him and you want him to get out of that situation, but at the same time you understand his pride and not wanting to have help. He wants to do it himself, and at least that was something I could resonate with, so then I could understand Adam better. Really, this book has made me understand human nature better because Maggie just explores human nature in such a great way. And especially in terms of Ronan, that whole thing with, like, he has PTSD, it's very clear, he's traumatized. But at the same time, Adam says he creates his own problems and he has to fix them. And I think it's really great that Maggie shows so many different types and sides of a situation and a conversation and just explores it in a really great way, I feel like. And that was my video on the Raven Cycle. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, and if you enjoyed me the way I explored the Raven Cycle, you can subscribe. Give me your opinions on the book if you want to. Leave a comment, discuss the book with me. I am really up for discussions about these books because I feel like they're so interesting that they just need to be discussed. And I'll see you in my next video, and I hope you have a lovely day.